Hi, everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk Risk, where our mission is to engage, inspire, and empower the global community of risk practitioners. I'm your host, Naveen Agarwal, and today I have a very special guest for you. He is a technology executive and entrepreneur right from the Silicon Valley, but most importantly, he is a personal friend of mine from my college days. So it's like a reunion for us. After graduating, we went our different ways. And Ajay Dankar, who is my guest today, went to the technology world. And I joined the academia and the industry world for a chemical industry for some time and then medical space. So it's kind of a reunion for us. Very special session for me. Ajay, with that, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing very good, Naveen. Thank you so much for hosting me. And yes, indeed, it's a reunion in more than one way.
Yes. So, Ajay, you have been at the cutting edge of technology throughout your career. Your career has taken you through some big names like Cisco, Microsoft, PayPal, Adobe, AWS, and most recently Google. You have seen how this technology has evolved so quickly from the front row seat. Help us understand that from a very high level. What's happening, especially now we hear so much about AI. Tell us what is going on and where it's headed.
So, when it comes to AI, it is fundamentally changing everything. Everything that we do today is being impacted, first of all. But more importantly, there's much more that is still to come. So things that we are doing today, very soon, not only we will do them differently, or maybe we won't do them at all. Machines will take over or agents will take over. So that's the fun part. That's also, in some ways, the kind of the fear of unknown, at the same time, opportunities.
Yeah, great. And I hope we can understand that a little bit more from our world in the MedTech space, where we deal with regulated industry and medical devices. You know, Ajay, I was thinking about this the other day. It's only been maybe only 2 years, I believe. Before that, we didn't know anything about LLMs, Gen AI, Agentic AI, all these terms are now coming into this common language for everybody. Take us through that journey. What was it like for you when you first came across this development? And, maybe you were into it and it just came out. How did you feel and where you felt it could take us?
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, there have been researchers, Google DeepMind and other places. They have worked on this technology for probably a decade or so. But for most of us, this is like a 3, maybe 4-year-old technology, just in terms of when people started to pay attention to it. Thanksgiving time, November 2022, when GPT 2.0 was announced, that was kind of a big defining moment. Hey, this is even possible. And I learned about this technology first a little earlier than that. My co-founders used to hang out together. So we used to talk about what is coming, especially the ML models and how they were evolving. I was at AWS back then. But to be able to start practicing it, not just us, pretty much everyone, it's probably 2 years or so, maybe 3.
And now we see that already it is growing so fast. Yeah. My colleagues already know that FDA has cleared or approved more than 1,200 AI ML enabled devices. They have implemented LLM within the agency to help the reviewers with their work. So it is coming into our lives in a very quick way. That's how I feel. So let's talk about that a little bit. First, let's set the stage right. We hear about these terms, Gen AI, Agentic AI, and what is the difference between the two?
So Gen AI or generative AI, it's really, it's a representative of the technology that is being used there. So first of all, these technologies are creating new content. Gen AI or even adaptive AI, that's words that you may hear sometimes in MedTech.
Ajay, I think you are breaking up a little bit.
Let me say it again. Sorry about that. So
Yeah,
when it comes to generative AI, it's really about creating new content, such as text, images, audio, even code, by learning from patterns in training data. So that's the key difference, or that's kind of the main point. Any technology, often we hear LLM or large language models. So they have been trained with large data sets and billions of parameters. And what that does is that such a system, because of the way it has been trained and how much it has been trained with, it is able to create new content, which could be text, images, audio, even video, etc., etc. That's the Gen AI part. The agentic AI, it's kind of the next frontier in many ways. It's about, AI systems that can autonomously make decisions. They can take actions. They can even, you give them a goal, a high-level goal, an outcome, and they will assemble themselves and go execute and come back to you, meaning to us humans, with the results that we intended. Now, Agentic AI that's the promise. I would also say that we're not there yet, but that's the promise. And the technology is evolving quite fast, so that hopefully someday a lot of that automation and a lot of that independent decisioning will be possible.
So Agentic AI will be like a virtual team member. You could say, hey, help me with this, or go do this research for me. Here's what I want to accomplish. Come back with a report, something like that. Did I understand that correctly?
Personal assistant, digital assistant, certainly people have started to think on those lines. There also, sometimes we wonder that, hey, very soon in the near future, in a meeting that we go to, there will be humans, us, and then there will be some, agents representing, let's say, different functions, an agent from HR, agent from legal, et cetera, et cetera. Even the meeting format is going to be, morphing sometimes.
Very interesting, very interesting. And you're saying that it's not here yet, but it's definitely people are talking about it, and it could come sooner than later. Okay, great. Yes. So obviously there are a lot of unknowns and uncertainties around this, and naturally what we don't know or what we don't understand, we fear. So there's a lot of concern. Also, the regulatory environment is also changing fast. We have already heard about the EU AI Act. We just had a conversation about that on Let's Talk Risk a couple of weeks ago. Guys, you can find that recording. But in the US, on the other hand, the legislative or the regulatory space is still in the flux, right? Tell us what's happening here in the US.
Yes. Here in the country, things are still evolving, and different regulations, depending on FDA certainly has like SAMD done, they have spelled out what they're expecting. Again, that is being ratified. So that's happening, which is a good thing compared to, let's say, Europe. But something that happened about a week ago, which is the America's AI Action Plan. And I think some of the folks may already have seen it, read it. And I would say that's the most comprehensive blueprint thus far for AI from the US. And that's, it really sets the tone of what companies in the regulated industry should expect. So that's a very welcome and refreshing thing to look forward to, because that not only sets regulations, what to expect, but also even, how one should go about supporting or procuring AI systems.
Now, just to be clear, it is not a law yet. It's just a sort of executive order from the White House. Is that right?
They call it plan.
The plan. Okay, it's almost like a vision, blueprint, policy, things like that. So it should shape where the legislation will eventually end up.
Yeah, without being too speculative, yes, quite likely.
Okay, so as you review it, what are some of the top 2 or 3 items that stand out to you in terms of where you think the U.S. regulatory landscape might go to?
So, it is, so first of all, it's quite comprehensive, and it's covering wide variety of things. It's covering innovation, it's covering infrastructure, it's also covering global security. So, it's multidimensional in more than one ways. Also, the implications are not just for a single industry. Here, of course, we are much more focused on MedTech, but think banking, financial services, think healthcare, think even public sector, from pharma. So for all these different sort of industries where regulations matter and folks are used to operating in a regulated fashion, this plan essentially sets the tone for what they should do, in our view, short term, mid term, long term, not to be compliant, but also incorporate regulations and incorporate governance as part of doing business going forward.
That's nice, because I think this philosophy seems like similar to the EU AI Act, which is horizontal legislation across all industries, and every industry will have to adapt it to itself, like how it wants to do it. So from that point of view, big picture, it looks similar. Is there anything that stands out to you which might have more of an American flavor to it than the European flavor?
Again, some of the details will emerge. So it's more about what one should do immediately, like short term, things like visibility, things like control. So those are some of the quick things that one can do and one should do. Things like provenance tracking, those things one should do. Some of those details are maybe slightly different, or more nuanced than, let's say, EU AI Act, without getting too much into how MDR works or what all it says in EU. But there are some differences, especially the context here is, it encompasses multiple things, not just regulation.
Okay, I understand. But I'm hoping that it'll have an opportunity for innovation and not necessarily make it so bureaucratic or strict that innovation stops. Okay, great. So Ajay, I know as you have developed this platform for what you call proactive AI governance, deploying AI in a trusted way. You talk to a lot of people in the industry, different industries. As you talk to them, what are you finding as their top 2 or 3 concerns when it comes to AI deployment? I know every executive is talking about that, right? They have to do something with AI and their stakeholders expect it. But when you talk to them about actually doing it, what are they most concerned about?
Yeah. So first of all, we are, third quarter 2025. Most of the POCs are over. People are, being much more serious about, there are all these efficiency gains to be had. The promise that was, let's say, pursued as a POC last year or maybe year before. So, what does that mean now, right? So it's past the boardroom discussions. Is more about, hey, is this in the roadmap? And with the roadmap comes the question, what exactly are we going to get and when? So that's something that we are seeing more and more. That, hey, show this as part of your, let's say, QBR or as part of your, 4 to 6 quarter roadmap. Number 2, so with that comes, especially the leaders in engineering, leaders who are responsible for, not just strategy, but also implementation, also support. That natural question, are we prepared? Do we have the right staffing? Do we have the right training? So that's the second thing that we hear a lot. There's also, just to be very transparent here, we do see some folks asking questions, hey, is it going to impact jobs? And then comes the question, so what all do I need to do? And one area that we focus on as Trust AI, the startup that I co-founded, it's a lot about compliance. That's, of course, we are very focused on solving that need for customers in the regulated industries. But that's something that we hear a lot from customers in various industries, that, hey, what do I need to do to make sure that not only it runs in production, it can scale, and most importantly, while we do that, it stays compliant.
So interesting that you say that it's no longer a question of whether we have to do it, but it's a question of execution now. And how can we make this happen in a way that works for us, helps us to be compliant and still be very productive? So people are thinking about the execution piece now more than anything else. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, very much so. And with that, when I was referring to roadmap, there are all the discussions about, LLMs, SLMs, self-hosted, cloud-hosted, third-party, all the pros and cons, guardrails, as well as agentic, right? These are all part of the conversation. And most importantly, how do these technologies solve my business problems? Let's say doing SAMD, let's say, PMS, post-market surveillance. Exactly what do I need to do? How can I incorporate AI there? What balances I need to put in place? If I'm an insurance, can I handle claims processing using AI? And if so, what does that mean? So there are many conversations we are hearing now on those lines.
And of course, trust is a big factor, right? Everyone talks about, can I really trust it? Can I really trust what AI is telling me? And your whole platform, your whole approach to execution in making this work is based on trust. So tell us a little bit about how you are approaching the problem of trust when you communicate, work with your partners. How do you define the dimensionality of trust? It's such a vague term, but how do you even talk about doing it in a trustworthy way?
Yeah. So first of all, what we find often is that the folks, especially the ones who are implementing, they are unclear about exactly what they need to do from a compliance perspective, regulatory perspective, right? So a lot of the initial discussions are about not education, but really about discovery. FDA has SAMD, or there's of course EU MDR, and there are so many different regulations. So which ones are applicable, and also which ones are applicable for the specific use cases where you're adding AI and taking into production? Because that's when these things become material. So a lot of the discussions are around discovery. Also, what we find is that, of course, the compliance officers, the auditors, the legal, the business folks, they have much more knowledge, and they are much more concerned for obvious reasons to ensure that the AI adoption is happening in a compliant manner. Whereas, typically engineering, development, QA, these folks have less knowledge for obvious reasons. So there's a lot of translation that needs to occur. And then beyond that, that's the life cycle that we add value as Trust AI.
I see. I think what you're describing here is that when we talk about implementing an AI system, we have to look at the enterprise level, not necessarily at a functional level, because there are so many regulatory requirements for different functions. And one function may know a lot about their requirements, but may not know as much about other requirements. So What you are saying is the discovery has to include a comprehensive look about what all we have to do in order to do our business, and not just launching a product or selling a product is only one part of it, right? Did I understand that correctly?
Naveen, you're absolutely correct. Also, the other benefit of sort of having a holistic, comprehensive look, early on, is to be able to apply whatever you're solving across multiple use cases. So as opposed to doing one use case at a time, one regulation at a time, kind of, as you roll that out and as an after fact, doing it proactively, doing it comprehensively, doing it holistically gives you the ability, exactly the way you said, but I would just add to that you are able to now handle more than one use cases as you sort of.
So bringing this back to my earlier point about trust, I think there's a lesson here. The lesson here is that the more work we do, the more diligent we are in this discovery process, the more trustworthy our implementation would be, right? It makes sense to me. The system will do what we design it to do. So guys, this is a very fascinating conversation we are having about AI and proactive governance. I welcome all of you. Please participate in this conversation and share your questions, comments, any thoughts on your mind in the chat, and I will bring that here in our conversation with Ajay. So with that, Ajay, I was also thinking about this. I think this situation also presents a very unique opportunity for our colleagues in the QA/RA world, because we are so used to working in a regulatory space. We understand how to implement a system that meets certain regulatory requirements. Would it not be an opportunity for us to now expand that kind of horizon, our view, and participate in this conversation in a more active way, more at the enterprise level? How do you see that play out?
So, Naveen, I absolutely agree with you. There's an opportunity to be much more proactive and be involved upfront in the overall process for a few different reasons. So first of all, this technology, AI technology overall, which has multiple aspects to it: Gen AI, adaptive AI, agentic AI. But core of it is that you're now dealing with systems which have non-deterministic behavior, right? That's really what they bring to the table, right? That's the main capability. Of course, there are many other aspects to it, but that's something to reckon with. Then comes, the models, they drift, right? Mm-hmm. That's something that we are not used to. Traditionally speaking, we are not used to seeing a system which drifts over time. Then comes the question of they are also somewhat opaque today, kind of a black box. There are regulations that are on the horizon, make them much more sort of, revealing exactly what was used to make a decision, source attribution, that those are probably they will be included as part of sort of how companies will do business and how models will have to act. But those things are still coming. So the question becomes for someone in, let's say, QA, is that how do I explain the behavior of the model which was used to make a decision or assist in, let's say, in taking an action using AI? So that becomes yet another sort of aspect to keep in mind. And the last but not the least is about adaptive AI, which is different, but that also presents a separate set of challenges. How do I have to go and revalidate regulatory compliance because the system itself has evolved? It has adapted the environmental conditions, or it has learned from, let's say, patients' data, etc.
Very interesting, fascinating to me how there's an opportunity here to really make a big contribution here. It'll take a little bit of work on our part. So my next question for you, Ajay, is what skill sets do you see typically that is missing from professional work? And we're used to doing things differently, not in a AI-dominated system, but more on a manual, human-based system. And we have developed some skills and we have become very good at it. But there are some gaps. What gaps do you see that we should think about filling as we continue to advance our careers?
That's a big question, Naveen. And I would say in context of AI, it's affecting, or it will affect in a good way, in my view, how we go about doing our day-to-day jobs. So we all are becoming more skilled. I can do marketing, at least, basic marketing I can do myself. I can do basic marketing. I can even figure out things, interpret documents that otherwise I had to wait on, let's say, my lawyers to explain to me. So the good part is that now the technology makes it possible for all of us to know about domains that we are not trained in, or we know very little about. Now, not to say that you will take it, literally. there are other implications of doing so, but at least you will understand. So first thing I would say is that, to answer your question, is that to be able to become more AI literate, more and more, that is the basics. We all need to do that, in my opinion. And I think most of the people have started to do that.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that you have to go enroll in a degree program and go through so many courses and training. It's just a matter of so many tools are already available out there. Start playing with them. Just the other day, FDA came out with this final guidance on cybersecurity. It's like a big document, huge. And I'm not a cybersecurity expert. And for me to read that document would take, I don't know, maybe several days and understand even more. But here are some tools that you can actually make that process much faster. You can have it review the document, ask questions. So Ajay, I think to me, the biggest skill that we need to continue to sharpen, not develop, but sharpen is our ability to ask questions and be curious about things and evaluate the answers we are getting, whether they make sense or not. So that's sort of critical thinking, in my view, which we will need to sharpen, not necessarily develop it from scratch. That's where I'm thinking. Is there any other recommendation you have for colleagues in our space to become AI literate? What do you see as some of the best practices out there?
I would say understanding how, in whatever job functions that all of us are in, to the extent, some AI is being used, and hence, we are the consumers of AI underneath. Knowing how that system works not only helps us sort of interpret or accept whatever output we are getting, but more importantly, in our day-to-day jobs, whether, let's say, QA function, for example, or let's say, you're augmenting your business workflow with AI, and that could be for a specific task. It could be for software as medical device. It could be for lending. It could be for hiring, any of those tasks. To be able to understand and to be able to interpret what these systems do, so that not only you accept them, but also you're able to test them. You're able to validate, what they're doing. And then last but not the least, in my view, now, when it comes to compliance, when it comes to governance, they are no longer a checkpoint. They are not kind of the final stage that, hey, let's make sure that they are meeting the regular, they have to be incorporated as part of the pipeline, the development pipeline. So, having that mindset and incorporating, these such a governance, what we call as proactive AI compliance, as part of your pipeline, that becomes important. And as long as we do that, and the more we do that, the more we make sure that such systems, we don't think of them as kind of a black box, but also we're able to meet the regulations and the requirements that government has and the agencies have in front of us being the practitioners of AI and related technology.
Wow. So, I think there's a lesson here, there's an insight here that I'm catching. What you are saying is that the more we work with these systems, the better we understand. We become the translators. We become the explainers of these systems to the broader organization. And that's how we build trust and transparency. Excellent. Hannah is sharing a very good comment here. AI can be a great way to bridge understanding between disciplines. Great comment, Hannah. Thank you for sharing. Ajay, we are coming close to our 30 minutes. But guys, you've been awfully quiet today. So what's on your mind? Please share in comments. How do you see this field evolving? How do you see us making a contribution? What challenges do you see for us and how we can play a role? Please share those comments here and we'll incorporate that into our discussion. But Ajay, I want to give you a couple of minutes to just process your thoughts and think about 2 or 3 key takeaways for us at the end of our conversation today. And in the meantime, I'm going to share some announcements with my colleagues here. Guys, next week, we're going to have another very, very insightful conversation. In fact, Hannah is in the audience today. She's going to be our guest speaker. We're going to talk about how human factors engineers can play a critical role in the design and development process in the current environment, which is so dynamic. So we're going to have a great conversation. Please show up and participate in that discussion. Second announcement again is about my post-market surveillance workshop, which is going to happen very soon in a couple of weeks from now. We're going to talk about not only regulatory requirements, but also how to execute efficiently and effectively and create a system that will work for you in finding these safety signals early and taking those action. And by the way, AI can be a big tool in that space. And if you guys are interested about it, please let me know. Reach out to me and I'll share with you more information. So Ajay, with that, floor is yours. Please share 2 or 3 key takeaway points.
Well, thank you. I mean, final thoughts, I would say, first of all, for anyone who is implementing, building AI governance into your dev pipeline, what we were talking a minute ago, that's a must-have in our view. The only other point I would make is that ethical and compliant AI adoption from a business perspective, it will help your business become better. It is not a hindrance. So if anyone is thinking that these things are slowing us down, that's not the right approach in our view. It's really about making your business better. It's making your business compliant, and it's really going to help you in the long term from a business perspective, as well as what your customers, what your employees need while such technologies get adopted. So those are the two things I would say. It's good for us in our view.
Yeah, excellent. And in our space, we are so familiar with the world of compliance. I think here's an opportunity for us. Here's an opportunity because already there is so much of focus on execution from the senior management level. It's an opportunity for us to take that leadership role, play a very active role in how it gets done, and show the results that can be achieved for our business. So what a great conversation, Ajay. Thank you for sharing your insights with us. I wish you all the best in your new venture and hope to see you soon. Take care.
Thank you so much, Naveen. It was a pleasure to be here.
All right. And guys, thanks a lot for attending today. We'll see you once again next week.